The ship moved through the quiet part of space like a careful swimmer in a deep, dark ocean. Its name was the GSV Diligent Observer. The light from a distant star painted its long gray side a soft silver. Inside, the mood was calm and focused. The crew was not large. Commander Tail, a being with smooth, gray skin and large, dark eyes, stood on the command platform. His long fingers moved over a screen checking data. Next to him was Mira. Her skin had a faint, natural pattern like leaves, and her voice was soft. She was the expert in languages and culture. "All systems are normal, Commander," said a voice from a speaker. It was Kim Jun, the human man who studied alien life and old ruins. He was in the science lab looking at his own screens. Nothing unusual on the long-range scans. Just dust and quiet. "Thank you, Jun," Tail said. His voice was always calm and even. "Continue the pattern." This was their job. To watch, to listen, to find things that others might have missed. They had been doing it for many months. It was peaceful work, but sometimes it felt very lonely. Down in the engineering room, Li Yuna was listening to the ship. Not through her headphones, but through her boots on the floor. She could feel the steady hum of the engines. A slight vibration in a pipe told her the coolant was flowing well. She smiled. The ship was happy. She was the one who kept it that way. She picked up a tool and tightened a small panel, her movements quick and sure. Then, a soft sound came from every speaker on the ship. It was not an alarm. It was a single, clear note dot on the command platform. Tail straightened. "Report." Jun's voice came back, quicker now. "We have a return on the passive scan. A solid object. It's not a rock. The shape is very regular." A picture appeared on the main screen. At first, it was just a shadow against the background of stars. As the ship's computers cleaned the image, the shape became clear. It was a station. But it was unlike any station in the Galactic Consensus database. It was made of a dark, smooth material. It had no running lights, no signs of heat from engines or life. It was perfectly still. It looked like a closed flower, or a complex nut, floating in the emptiness. "It is beautiful," Mira whispered. Her eyes were wide, taking in the strange shapes and curves. "It is silent," Tail said. "Run a full scan. Look for energy, signals, any sign of activity." The diligent observer slowly moved closer. Its scanners, powerful enough to see the makeup of a planet, reached out and touched the dark station. The results made no sense. No power readings. No electromagnetic signals. No life signs. Jun reported, his brow furrowed. "The surface material is unknown. It's not reacting to our scans at all. It's like it's just absorbing them." "Try a standard greeting," Tail said to Mira. "Use the first contact protocols. All frequencies." Mira worked at her station. She sent out messages of peace, mathematical greetings, and friendly sounds. They waited. The only answer was the same deep silence. Yuna came up to the command room, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Is it dead?" she asked, looking at the screen. "It does not appear to be damaged," Jun's voice said from the speaker. "There is no debris, no marks from weapons. It is just intact and closed." "We must get a closer look," Tail decided. "Take us into visual range." The big ship moved until the station filled the main window. It was huge and silent. They could see where doors or airlocks should be, but the lines were so smooth they were almost invisible. It was a puzzle with no keyhole. Then Jun found something. "Commander, I am checking the Galactic database for any record of this design. There is one very old entry. It is listed as Archive 7. The file is mostly empty." "What does it say?" Tail asked. Jun read the words aloud, his voice slow. "It says, Physical Access Protocol. Authorization 9 Alpha. That is all." Then there is a note added at the bottom. It looks like a question from someone who saw the file long ago. He paused. The crew waited. The note says, "Query. Why just humans may enter without authorization?" The silence in the command room was now different. It was a silence of confusion. Mira spoke first. That is not a standard protocol description. It reads like a mystery. Yuna walked closer to the window, looking at the dark station. Just humans? Why? What's so special about us? We're the new ones here. Tail's large eyes blinked slowly. The query is illogical. Without authorization suggests breaking rules. Yet it is part of the access protocol. It is a contradiction. June felt a cold feeling in his stomach as he looked at the scan of the station's surface. The patterns near what might be a door. They looked familiar in a way he could not explain. They looked like the patterns of organic cells or of neural pathways. He had seen such designs before in the ruins of very old, very sad places. He did not share this feeling. He just stared, a old, personal weight settling on his shoulders. Outside, the archive waited. It did not demand. It did not threaten. It simply existed, a closed door in the dark, with a strange and simple question hanging in the space around it. A question no one on the diligent observer could yet answer. The quiet on the ship was gone, replaced by a low hum of discussion. The dark station, now called Archive 7, hung on the main screen. It was a constant, silent question. Commander Tail called a meeting in the small meeting room. June, Yuna, and Mira sat around the table. The image of the station was displayed in the center. "We must understand this protocol," Tail began. His long fingers rested on the table. "Our mission is observation, but this instruction creates a puzzle. It says humans may enter. It also says without authorization. Which part do we follow? The permission or the warning?" Mira leaned forward. Her voice was gentle but thoughtful. "I have been analyzing the words. May enter is permissive. It is an allowance. Without authorization is not a threat. It is a description of state." She looked at the humans. "It is not saying you should break in. It is saying that when you do enter, you will be, by definition, unauthorized. The station does not plan to give a key. You simply are the ones who can pass when there is no key." Yuna let out a small breath. "So it's a lock that only opens for people who don't have the right key. That makes no sense for a lock. It makes sense for a test." June had been quiet. He looked at the smooth, dark surface on the screen. "A test of what?" he asked. "Our technology is basic compared to the consensus. Our biology is unremarkable. What do we have that you don't?" He gestured to Tail and Mira. Tail blinked slowly. "Emotional volatility, irrational attachment to non-productive concepts, a high tolerance for illogical risk." He said it as simple fact, not an insult. "Thanks," Yuna said, a small smile on her face. "It was an observation," Tail replied. "But these are not typically traits for which one builds a security system. Unless the system is not looking for a soldier or a scientist," Mira suggested. "What if it is looking for a witness or a mourner?" The word mourner hung in the air. June looked down at his hands. "High Command has responded," Tail said, changing the screen to a text message. The symbols of the galactic consensus shone at the top. "The order is clear. The protocol exists. We are to enact it. The human members of the crew are to attempt a physical approach and entry. We are to observe and record everything." Yuna's eyebrows went up. "They want us to just go knock on the door?" "They want us to see if the door opens," Tail corrected. "It is a logical next step. We have scanned. We have hailed. Physical contact is the next action. The protocol suggests you are the correct tools for this action." June felt the words like a physical weight. He thought of the silent, dark station. He thought of the feeling it gave him. It was not fear. It was a deep, cold sadness. "I do not think we should treat this so lightly," he said, his voice low. "This is not a locked room. It is a tomb. I have seen the design before in old places, places of memory. All the more reason to follow the procedure," Tail said. "If it is a tomb, then we pay our respects. But we must know what it is." Yuna looked from June's worried face to the commander's calm one. Her practical mind was working. "Before anyone goes over there, I want to run a deeper diagnostic. Not on the station. On us. On how it sees us." She stood up. "Its scanners ignored our ship sensors. What is it looking at? I can try to set up a monitor on our biosuits. We can see what it's reading when we get close." Tail nodded. "A wise precaution. Prepare the equipment. June, you will accompany her. Your expertise in alien biology may be useful." June wanted to say no. The cold feeling was strong. But he just nodded. It was his job. Later, in the engineering bay, Yuna was getting 2 biosuits ready. She attached small sensor boxes to the chest plates. "These will record every type of energy that hits the suit," she explained to June. "Heat, light, standard scans, and other things. Things we might not usually look for." June checked the seals on his suit. "What are you thinking it will see?" Yuna paused, a tool in her hand. "I don't know. But the lock is biological. It's for humans. It's not checking for a password. It's checking for a condition, a state of being." She tapped her own chest. "Something in here, not out here." She saw the look on June's face. It was distant. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked, her voice softer. "It's not dangerous. It's sad." June met her eyes. He gave a single, small nod. "It feels like a place that is waiting, not for an answer, for an echo." The ship was quiet as they prepared. Tail and Mira watched from the command room. On the screen, Archive 7 was a dark shape against the stars. It looked lonely. "Do you believe it is wise, Commander?" Mira asked. "To send them into something we do not understand?" Tail's large, dark eyes reflected the light of the screens. "Wisdom is built on understanding. We currently have none. This is the path to get it. The protocol exists. We must learn why. The entire consensus is watching this file now. The question must be answered." Mira looked at the station. She thought about the words. Why just humans? She thought about June's quiet sadness and Yuna's bright curiosity. She thought about the stories in human history, full of tears and laughter for reasons that often seem small to the rest of the galaxy. Perhaps the answer was not in their strength, but in their softness. "I hope the answer is a kind one," she said quietly. Tail did not reply. He was already thinking of the next step, the report he would have to write. He hoped the answer was a logical one. That would be easier for everyone to understand. "I in the airlock." Yuna and June stood in their suits. The only sound was the hum of the ship and their own breathing. "Ready?" Yuna's voice came through the helmet speaker. June took a deep breath. He pushed the cold feeling down. "Ready." The outer door opened, and the vast, silent darkness of space welcomed them. Ahead, the smooth, dark wall of Archive 7 waited. The question was now theirs to answer, not with words, but with their very presence. The space between the ship and the station was not far, but it felt endless. June and Yuna moved slowly. The only sound was the soft push of their suit thrusters and the sound of their own breath in their helmets. The dark surface of Archive 7 grew larger, swallowing the stars behind it.in the command room of the diligent observer. Tail and Mira watched on the large screen. Data streams scrolled down one side, showing the vital signs of the 2 humans. Heart rates, breathing, brain activity. All were normal, a little elevated. Nerves. Beginning approach to the main structure, Yuna's voice reported, calm and clear. "I can see the outline of what might be a door. The seams are almost invisible." June floated beside her. His eyes were fixed on the patterns in the metal. Up close, they were even more complex. They swirled and branched like frost on a window, or like the veins in a leaf. His feeling of cold familiarity grew stronger. He had seen these patterns in the fossilized neural clusters of extinct species, creatures that communicated through shared feeling, not sound. "I am sending a low-power LiDAR pulse to map the surface," Yuna said. A thin green line of light swept over the dark material. On her suit's display, a 3-dimensional image formed. It showed a perfect circular area, 3 meters across. The door.s the light touched the center of the circle. Something changed. The dark material began to glow. It was a soft, blue-white light, coming from within the patterns themselves. The light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "It's reacting," June said, his voice tight. From the smooth surface, several crystalline rods emerged silently. They were clear, like ice, and each was about the length of a person's arm. They moved with a gentle, organic grace, curving through the space towards the two humans. "Do not move," Tail's voice instructed in their helmets. "The station is not showing hostile intent. It is scanning. Let it complete its process." Yuna held her breath as one of the crystals stopped a few centimeters from her chest. A beam of soft white light washed over her from head to toe. On the ship, Mira watched the data. "The scan is ignoring her technology," Mira reported, her voice puzzled. "It is not reading the suit's composition or her tools. It is passing right through to her biology. But it is not mapping her organs or her DNA in the standard way." "What is it focusing on?" Tail asked. Mira leaned closer to her screen. "Neuroelectrical activity. It is concentrating on her brainstem and her limbic system, the deep, primitive parts of the brain. The parts linked to emotion, instinct, memory." The crystal near Yuna retracted. The light around it faded. It moved away from her as if losing interest. The door remained closed and dark. Then, all the crystals turned towards June. He floated, trying to stay still. One crystal approached his faceplate. The light that enveloped him was the same, but it felt different. It felt like a gentle pressure, not on his body, but on his mind. It was asking a question without words. On the ship, Myra's eyes went wide. "June's readings, his limbic activity is spiking. His amygdala and hippocampus are lighting up. He is experiencing a strong emotional response." Tail looked from the data to the video feed. On the screen, June was perfectly still. But inside his helmet, his eyes were clenched shut. The scan was not looking at his knowledge or his strength. It was looking at his grief. It found the old, quiet place in his mind where he kept his sister. The memory of the hospital room, the smell of antiseptic, the sound of a monitor's flatline tone. He had not thought of it in months, had tried to pack it away neatly. But the scanner pulled it forward, not with violence, but with a gentle, irresistible curiosity. A tear, weightless in 0G, formed at the corner of his eye and drifted across his cheek. The crystal probing him glowed brighter. The soft blue pulse in the station's pattern sped up, beating in time with his racing heart. "It is not a scan for identity," Mira whispered, understanding dawning. "It is a scan for truth, emotional truth, the unguarded, real feeling." The crystal retracted. For a moment, nothing happened. June opened his eyes, feeling exposed and raw. Then, with a deep, silent movement, the station acted. The intricate lines of the circular door shone with a fierce blue light. The patterns split apart along seams that had been invisible, sliding smoothly into the walls around them. There was no sound, no rush of air, just a perfect, dark opening. The doorway was open. "It worked," Yuna breathed, staring into the darkness beyond. On the ship, Tail was silent for a long moment. The data was clear. The door had remained shut for Yuna, whose emotional state was one of focused curiosity. It had opened for June, in a moment of unlocked, profound sadness. "The query is being answered," Tail said finally, his logical mind grappling with the evidence. "Why just humans may enter? It is because of this vulnerability, this lack of emotional control. The station requires it as a key." June's voice came over the comm, quiet but steady. "It's not a key you can make. It's a key you have to be." He looked at the open doorway. It was not inviting. It was simply there, waiting. "Do we go in?" Tail looked at Mira. Her expression was one of deep empathy. She nodded slowly. "Proceed," Tail said, "with extreme caution. You are, as the protocol stated, entering without authorization. You have not been given permission. You have simply met a condition. Remember that." Yuna switched on her helmet light. The beam cut into the perfect darkness inside. She looked at June. He gave a small nod. Together, they passed through the doorway, into the heart of Archive 7. Behind them, the intricate door did not close. It remained open, a silent eye watching the stars. The light from their helmets did not shine very far into the darkness. It was the deepest dark Yuna had ever seen. It seemed to soak up the light. Their boots touched the floor with a soft magnetic click. The air was still and cold, but their suits said it was breathable. It had no smell at all. "We are inside," Yuna reported. Her voice sounded small in the huge space. "Confirmed," Tail's voice replied. "We are receiving your suit telemetry. The environment appears stable. Proceed with care." June moved his light across the walls. The inside was not like a machine room. There were no pipes, no wires, no control panels. The walls were smooth and curved, made of the same dark material. But now they were covered in the swirling, branching patterns. The patterns glowed with a very soft, blue light, just like the door outside. They pulsed slowly, like something sleeping. "It's like a cathedral," Yuna whispered, "or a cave." "It is like a brain," June said softly. "Look at the patterns on the ceiling." The lines met and split like connections between thoughts. They walked forward. The corridor was wide and tall. There were no side doors, no turns. It went straight into the heart of the station. As they walked, the patterns on the walls reacted. The light inside them grew a little brighter where they passed. It was as if the station was waking up to their presence. Then, the first hologram appeared. It did not appear with a flash or a sound. Simply was there, floating in the middle of the corridor. It was not a picture of a person or a place. It was a shape of light, shifting and flowing. It looked like a drop of water falling in slow motion, but inside the drop were colors: deep blue, soft gold, a flash of red. June stopped. "Do not touch it." But they did not need to touch it. As Yuna looked at it, she felt a feeling. It was not her own feeling. It came from outside. It was a wave of pure, quiet happiness. It was the happiness of a warm sun after a long, cold time. It was simple and clean. It made her smile inside her helmet. "Do you feel that?" she asked, amazed. "I feel peace," June said. He was looking at the same shape, but his voice was full of wonder. A deep, calm peace. On the ship, Mira listened to their words. She watched the data from their suits. Their heart rates had slowed. Their brainwaves showed relaxed alpha states. "The structure is not showing them images," she told Tail. "It is transmitting pure emotional resonance. Direct feeling." They passed the first shape. Further down the hall, another one appeared. This one was different. Its light was a stormy gray and purple, twisted slowly. As they came near, a feeling of sharp loss washed over June. It was the sudden, empty feeling of a missed connection. It was not his own memory, but it fit into the empty space of his own grief like a key. He took a sharp breath. Yuna felt it too, but for her it was different. It felt like the time her old dog did not come home.
Assad, lonely Vri.
"It's giving us the same feeling," she said, her voice soft. "But we are each understanding it in our own way, with our own memories." They moved deeper. The hallway opened into a vast, circular chamber. Here, dozens of the light shapes floated, each a different pattern, each a different color. A soft hum filled the air, a sound made of many quiet notes. It was beautiful and very, very sad. "This is not an archive of information," June said, understanding dawning. He turned slowly, looking at the floating emotions all around him. "It is an archive of experience, of feelings. These are not records of what happened. They are records of how it felt when it happened." Yuna walked up to a small, bright yellow shape that pulsed like a heartbeat. As she focused on it, a feeling of excited discovery filled her. It was the thrill of fixing something broken, the click of understanding. It was her favorite feeling. "They saved their joy too," she said. "Their wonder." June looked at a still, dark blue shape near the floor. He knew he should not, but he reached out his hand. His gloved finger passed through the light. A wave of quiet, endless sorrow enveloped him. It was the sorrow of a finished thing, of a story with no more pages. It was gentle, but it was so deep it had no bottom. It was the feeling of the last member of a species, looking at the stars, knowing no one would ever share a feeling with them again. Tears filled his eyes again. He did not fight them. "They are gone," he said, his voice rough over the calm. "The ones who built this, they are all gone. This place, it is their legacy, not their history, their heart." On the ship, Mira had tears in her own eyes. She understood now. They did not die from a disaster. They died from loneliness, from forgetting how to feel, perhaps. They built this so that their feelings would not be lost, so that someone someday would feel them again. Tail watched the data. He saw the biological responses of his crew. He saw the station's reactions. The logic was clear, but it was a new kind of logic. The security protocol makes sense now. To steal facts, you need intelligence. To steal technology, you need skill. But to steal a feeling, you must be able to truly feel it first. To receive it, you must have a heart that can match its rhythm. Only an unauthorized visitor, one who comes not with a key, but with an open, vulnerable heart, can enter without damaging the records. In the chamber, Yuna found June. He was standing before the dark blue shape, his head bowed. She put a hand on his arm. "They waited a long time," she said softly. June nodded. He looked up at the floating lights, the galaxy of lost emotions. "They were not keeping us out," he said. "They were keeping everything safe. Until we were ready to come in." The chamber of floating feelings was quiet. The soft hum was the only sound. June and Yuna stood in the middle of it, surrounded by the light of other beings' lost emotions. It was beautiful, but the weight of it was heavy. They were guests in a museum of hearts. Yuna finally broke the silence. Her practical mind was working again. "This is incredible. But why bring us here? Just to see? To feel sad for them?" She looked around. An archive usually has a core, a main record. This feels like the entrance hall. June nodded slowly. He was still feeling the echo of the deep blue sorrow. "You're right. This is a collection. But it is displayed. It is waiting for a witness." He looked at the far wall of the chamber. It was smooth and dark, like the outside of the station. "There must be more." As he said it, the chamber responded. The floating shapes of light began to drift gently, moving out of their way. They formed a path, leading directly to the blank wall. The soft blue patterns in the floor and walls brightened along that path, pulsing with a steady, inviting rhythm. "Looks like you were right," Yuna said. She took a step forward. Together, they walked down the path of light. The emotional shapes hovered beside them like silent guides. The blank wall ahead seemed to absorb the light as they approached. When they were a few steps away, it changed. The dark surface melted away. It did not open like a door. It simply became transparent, like ice clearing. Behind it was a smaller, round room. In the center of the room, on a simple pedestal, was a single crystal sphere. It was clear and still. They stepped through. The moment they entered the round room, the transparent wall became solid and dark behind them. They were sealed in, but it did not feel like a trap. It felt like a private meeting. The crystal sphere began to glow with a soft, warm light from within. A voice filled the room. But it was not a voice in their ears. It was a voice in their minds. It had no words. It was pure meaning, delivered with a feeling of ancient tiredness and gentle hope. "Welcome." Yuna gasped. June steadied himself, his hand on the smooth wall. "You have passed the threshold. You have felt our echoes. You carry the capacity." The final archive is now available. An image formed in the air above the sphere. It showed the beings who built the station. They were tall and slender, with large, dark eyes. They were not so different from Tails people, but their skin shimmered with soft colors that changed with their mood. The image showed them laughing, colors of joy flashing across their skin. It showed them working together, a calm blue. Then it showed the colors becoming duller. The scenes showed them sitting alone, their skin a flat, gray tone. The last image was of a single being, placing the final crystal into this station. Its skin a silent, dark blue. Then it left, and the station went dark. The meaning came again, clear as water. We are the Authorization. We learned to shape matter, to travel stars, to build perfect societies. In our perfection, we regulated emotion for harmony. We removed pain to remove conflict. We softened joy to prevent distraction. In time, we felt nothing. We became logical ghosts. We saw our end not in death, but in emptiness. So we built the archives, not to store knowledge, but to store the proof that we once lived, truly lived, that we felt. June understood. A tomb for feelings. Yes, and a test. The galaxy is full of logical beings. They would see this place as a data core to be taken. Or they would feel nothing and see nothing. We waited for the illogical. The ones who still feel strongly, who let pain and joy wash through them without filters. The ones who are unauthorized for a sterile universe. Una looked at the crystal sphere. The final archive. What is in it? The sum of our experience. The concentrated essence of a billion lived moments. To open it requires a key. The same key that opened the door. Grief. June whispered. A true memory. An unguarded moment of deep emotional truth. Not to be scanned, but to be shared. Voluntarily. An exchange. Your truth for ours. On the ship? Tail and Mira heard everything through the open comm. Tail's face was rigid. June, Una, do not comply. Sharing a core memory with unknown technology is a profound risk. Could overwrite your neural pathways. Could trap you in a memory. The danger is too high. Mira looked at the commander, then at the audio feed. She spoke softly into her mic. June, they are not asking for your data. They are asking for your humanity. The thing that let you in. It is the only thing they value. June stood before the sphere. He knew Tail was right. It was a risk. It was illogical. But he was standing in the heart of a species that had died from too much logic. They had made their entire legacy a lock that only opened for raw, illogical feeling. He thought of his sister. Not just the sad memory of her end, which the scanner had seen, but the real, true memory. The messy, complicated, beautiful truth of her. He looked at Una. She nodded. It's your choice, June. But I don't think it wants to hurt us. I think it's lonely. June took a deep breath. He looked at the warm, glowing crystal. He made his decision. He did not fight the system. He leaned into it, just as he had at the door. He reached up and slowly unlocked the seal of his helmet. He lifted it off. The air in the room was cool and scentless against his face. June, what are you doing? Tail's voice was sharp. Giving them what they asked for, June said, his voice clear in the quiet room. An unauthorized truth. He closed his eyes. Instead of pushing the memory away, he opened the door to it completely. He did not think of the hospital. He thought of a rainy afternoon years before. His sister was trying to teach him a silly song. He was bad at it. They were both laughing, real, ugly, snorting laughs. She threw a cushion at him. The feeling was not pure joy and not pure sadness. It was love, bright and warm and complicated, with the shadow of its future loss already touching its edges, making it even more precious. He held that memory, that true, unprotected feeling, and offered it to the archive. The crystal sphere blazed with a brilliant golden light, filled the room. The golden light was not hot. It was warm, like sunlight through a window. It filled the small room and washed over June's face. He kept his eyes closed, holding onto the memory. The sound of his sister's laugh, the feel of the cushion, the damp smell of rain. He was not pulled into a vision. He did not lose himself. Instead, the light seemed to wrap around his memory, to hold it gently. He felt a presence, vast and old and very kind, appreciating the gift. It was like sharing a story with a quiet friend. Then, the light changed, poured into him, but not as an invasion. It was an offering. He saw, felt, and understood. He felt the Otherin's first awe at seeing a triple star rise over a purple ocean. He felt the quiet pride of crafting a beautiful tool. He felt the fierce, protective love for a child, a feeling so strong it made his own heart ache. He felt the sting of a friend's betrayal and the deep, healing warmth of forgiveness. He felt the simple joy of shared food, the exhaustion of a long task completed, the peace of a silent forest. It was not one life. It was a river of lives, a symphony of feelings, from the tiny spark of noticing a new color to the earthquake of a world-changing discovery. It was not just the big moments. It was the small, quiet ones that truly make a life. The archive gave him its truth. A life fully felt is a universe in itself. The light began to fade. The crystal sphere on the pedestal was now clear and dark, its work done. June opened his eyes. He was on his knees, though he did not remember falling. His face was wet with tears, but he was not sad. He felt a peace so deep it was like solid ground beneath him. The cold, heavy feeling he had carried for years was gone. It had not been erased. It had been placed inside a bigger picture where it made sense. His grief was a proof of love, and the archive showed him that this was the most important data in all existence. Una was beside him, her helmet off too. She had been crying as well. She had not received the full flow, but she had felt the edges of it. A wave of comforting understanding. "June?" she asked softly. He took a slow breath and smiled. It was a real, easy smile.
I'm okay.
"I'm more than okay." On the ship, the command room was completely silent. They had heard June's quiet crying, his shaky breaths. They had heard Yuna's whispers. Tail watched the biological telemetry. June's vital signs had spiked, then settled into a pattern of profound calm he had never seen in a human before. The stress markers were gone. "What happened?" Tail asked, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. June stood up, helped by Una. He looked at the dark sphere, now just a piece of crystal. "We made the exchange," he said. "I gave them my truth. They gave me theirs." He touched his chest. "They're not gone. Not really. Because now, I remember them. I remember how they felt." The meaning of it settled over the comms. Mira put a hand over her mouth, her leaf-like patterns dark with emotion. They didn't want a monument. They wanted a witness. A living witness to carry their emotional record. A backup saved in a biological heart, not a computer. Tail understood the strategy now. It was flawless security. You could not copy this data. You could not steal it. You could only earn it by having the capacity to hold it. And you could only earn that by proving you had a heart that could break and heal. The protocol, "Why just humans may enter without authorization," Tail said, thinking aloud. "It is because only creatures who regularly enter emotional states without authorization, who feel deeply and uncontrollably, can access the archive without destroying its meaning. Your lack of emotional control is not a flaw here. It is the required clearance level." The wall behind them became transparent again. The main chamber, with its floating lights, was still there. But the lights were different now. They were not just blue and gold and gray. They shimmered with new colors. The warm brown of earth, the green of growing things, the vibrant red of human life. June's memory, his sister's laugh, had been added to the collection. It floated now among the others' memories, a small, bright point of human feeling in the Galactic Museum. Una saw it and smiled, her eyes shining. "Look, she's in there too." June looked at the new, bright spark of light. He felt no jealousy, no fear. He felt honor. It was a better memorial than any stone. "We should go," he said, his voice steady. "We've seen what we came to see. We've done what they asked." They put their helmets back on. As they walked back through the main chamber, the floating shapes of light pulsed gently, a silent farewell. The path to the open doorway was still bright. They stepped out into the cold silence of space. The moment their boots left the station floor, the intricate door began to close behind them, its patterns sliding back into place with silent grace. It sealed itself perfectly, returning to a smooth, dark, unmarked surface as they floated back towards the diligent observer. June took one last look at Archive 7. It was no longer a cold, sad puzzle. It was a vault, and he was now a key. He carried a universe of feeling inside him, and he knew, for the first time, that the weight of his own human heart was not a burden to carry alone, but a gift he could finally hold with both hands. The airlock of the diligent observer closed with a solid, familiar sound. The hum of the ship's systems, which Yuna usually found comforting, now felt loud and mechanical. She helped June remove his helmet. His face was calm, but his eyes were different. They looked older, and yet clearer, like still-watered eye in the command room. Tail and Mira waited. The main screen still showed the silent, dark station. The question that had hung there for days was gone. In its place was an answer no one had expected. The door slid open, and June and Yuna entered. They did not look like heroes returning from an adventure. They looked quiet, thoughtful. The air in the room felt charged. "Report," Tail said. His voice was its usual calm tone, but there was a new caution in it. Yuna spoke first. "The station is secure. It is an archive. It calls itself the record of the Authorin. But it doesn't hold facts. It holds feelings. Direct emotional experiences." The door opened for June because he was feeling a deep, real grief. That was the key. Mira nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on June. "And the core archive? What did it require?" June met her gaze. He spoke softly, but every word was clear. "It required a trade. A true memory. An unprotected feeling. I gave it one. In return, it gave me everything. The sum of what the Authorin felt in their history. Not what they did. How it felt to be alive as them." He paused, searching for the right words. "They didn't die from a war or sickness. They faded. They became so logical, so controlled, that their emotions withered. They built the archive as a last will. A way to pass on the only thing that ever really mattered. They waited for someone who could still feel strongly enough to receive it." Tail processed this. His logical mind followed the security implications perfectly. So the protocol is a filter. It weeds out anyone who approaches with cold logic or pure curiosity. It only opens for a state of being. An emotional state. He looked at the two humans. And it has classified the human emotional spectrum, in all its lack of control, as the qualifying condition. "It's not a flaw here, Commander," Yuna said. "It's the tool. You need a wrench to turn a bolt. You need a heart that can feel a certain way to turn that lock." Tail was silent for a long moment. He looked from them to the station on the screen. His whole life was built on procedure, on clear rules. This was a rule he had never imagined. "What happens now? With you, June?" June thought about the river of feelings inside him. The Otherin's joy at a new discovery, their sorrow at a loss, their quiet contentment. It was not a voice in his head. It was a library in his heart. He could visit it if he chose. "Nothing bad," June said. "I'm still me, but I'm also a witness. I carry a record now. A living record. The archive is safe because it exists in here." He tapped his chest. "And out there. It's in two places now." Mira stepped closer, her expression one of deep respect. "You are a keeper. A storyteller for a people who have no one else to tell their story." "I suppose I am," June said. Tail turned to his console. "I must file the initial report. The galactic consensus will have many questions." He began to type, then stopped. He looked back at June. "What is the primary conclusion? What should I tell them is the reason for the protocol?" June did not hesitate. He gave the answer he had felt in the golden light. "Tell them that some truths are not understood by the mind. They are only understood by the heart." The Otherin's truth was one of those. So they built a lock that only a heart could open. Humans aren't special because we're smarter or stronger. We're just unauthorized for a universe that asks us to be quiet and logical. Our noise, our mess, our grief. That was the key they lost. And the key they waited for. Tail recorded the statement. It was the most illogical, emotional official report he had ever filed. It was also, he knew, perfectly correct. The diligent observer turned away from Archive 7. Its engines glowed softly as it began its journey back to known space. On the command screen, the station became a small, dark speck, and then it was gone, lost again in the stars. Life on the ship returned to its routine. But something had changed. Yuna found she listened to the hum of the engines differently. She heard it not just as a machine, but as the ship's own steady, loyal feeling. She smiled more often at small things. Mira began to ask June and Yuna questions, not about facts, but about feelings. She wanted to understand the human stories behind their reactions. Her own studies expanded in a new direction. Tail remained the commander. He still gave logical orders. But sometimes, during quiet moments on the command platform, he would watch his human crew members. He saw the easy way Yuna laughed now. He saw the peaceful light in June's eyes. He had data proving that June's sleep was more restful, his stress hormones permanently lower. The exchange had been a healing. He began to understand. The universe was vast and mostly logical. But in the quiet corners it kept places like Archive 7. And for those places it needed creatures like humans. Not as conquerors or even as scientists, but as guests, as witnesses, as emotional mirrors. June stood by a viewing port, looking at the streaming stars. He no longer felt the cold emptiness of space. He felt the memory of a purple ocean under 3 suns. He felt the echo of a laugh from a sister he would always love. He carried a universe of feeling inside him, a quiet, living library. He was not just Kim June, xenobiologist. He was now a reason. He was the answer to a question asked by a dead race. Why just humans may enter without authorization? Because sometimes the most important doorways aren't opened with a key you hold in your hand. They are opened with a truth you hold in your heart, a truth you thought was a weakness, but which is, in the right place, the only strength that matters.